Lean Six Sigma Green Belt training, analyze phase. We already completed a define and measure phase. Define was about understanding what is the process about, what is the problem in our process, and measure was about presenting on data and proving that we really have a problem in our process. And now it's time for analyze phase. Analyze phase is about assess process as well. And let's start with Lean. Lean is about eliminating waste. Six Sigma is about reducing variation in the process. And starting from the Lean perspective, we need to start with defining what does it mean waste. So waste is everything what is not adding value to the customer. So everything what is in the process but should be eliminated. And when you look at the process, you can have like three main categories when you look at the process steps or activities. There are value added activities, they are not value added but necessary, and waste. So starting from the value added activities, what does it mean? What does it mean that some part of the process, some activity is value added? The value added has like three criteria. The first one is the customer wants to pay for it. The second is the activity changes the product or service. And the third one is done for the first time right. So there is no rework needed in this case. The next category of step is non-value added but necessary. What does it mean? For example, we have steps in the process that are not adding value to the process from the customer perspective, but they are required. For example, by internal audit, or there are some law regulations or internal safety regulation that you need to follow this particular step, or you have to do this kind of activity, but it's not adding value to the customer. The last part we are going to talk now is waste. So waste is the category we want to eliminate from the process. And when we think about the process improvement, we should really concentrate on waste. Because sometimes we have the approach that we want to reduce the time spent on the process, and we think about, okay, so let's make the process quicker. But then you concentrate maybe on decreasing the time on value-added activities, and this is not right. You should concentrate your effort on decreasing time spent on waste, so on the activities that are not adding value to the customer. Okay, but before we are going to identify the waste in our process, we need to prepare for this kind of activity. And first thing to start with in the analyze phase is to look at your process map. So if you can have a look at your process map, what is the starting point, what is the ending point, how many process steps you have. Take a look at the SIPOC as well. So what are the inputs, what are the outputs coming to the process. And now you need, with the SIPOC and process map, go to the place where the process is done. And it's called Gemba walk. Gemba walk is very important because it's about confirming that the process described on the process map and presented in SIPOC as well is really the process you will observe in the workplace. And it doesn't matter if it's like a factory or is an office or bank, you need to go and see what is in the process. So nobody will do it for you. You as a project leader, you are responsible to sit next to the person who is doing the process with your process map and follow the process step and do like a process observation. But you will not go there alone. So you will be not alone in this workplace. Somebody will go with you. And the person is called team wood. Very simple to remember. Team is the name and wood is the surname. And I want to introduce you the person, because the person will be with you during analyze phase. And the person is about first letters of each of waste category. So you can see that T is for transport, I is for inventory, M is for motion, W is for waiting, O is for overprocessing, the second O is for overproduction, and D is for defect. So the name of the person, of Team Wood, is actually a way to easy remember the name of 7 wastes. There's also like an 8 waste that is called unused creativity of your employees, and very often it is added to the list as a 8 one. Okay, but I need first to explain you what each category means. So let's start with the first one, transportation, transport. Transport is about items, about goods, about it's not about movement of people. So in the factory, in the warehouse, in the distribution center, each transport of the item, pack, product is a waste. So our effort should be to look at the process and where we have a transportation. Do we need to transport this particular item so many times from point A to point B? Or maybe we can decrease the road the car is going through. So all this kind of way of thinking, maybe we can decrease the way the item is transported. Maybe we can decrease the way product is allocated between different parts in the factory, different stations. And in the service industry, for example, transportation is about data. So think about emails. So how many times you send the email go between different people. Think about transportation of data. So how many times you save the file in one location, then you save the file in another location, and then you send the file via email. This is also transportation. Think about what's the value of transporting all those items, products, or data, information. What's the value to the customer? Because very often you can eliminate some of these activities. And every activity is an effort and it's a time. So think during your Gemba walk, think about this kind of transportation to be eliminated. Inventory. Inventory is a waste because inventory is like a work in progress. And work in progress costs money and takes place as well. So in the factory, the goal is to reduce the level of inventory. The inventory, if in office environment, is for example every invoice that is waiting to be processed. So for example, if you have 2 days to process the invoice, and the invoice is waiting to be processed, it's also like an inventory and it's waste to be eliminated. So think about inventory in the process you have. Maybe there are some opportunities to reduce number of inventories. So you don't need to spend money, effort, place to have this kind of inventory. The next waste is about motion. So motion is about people. So transportation is a movement of goods, and motion is about movement of people. And movement of people, think about warehouse or office, how often we go and go to some other places. For example, in office, think where the printer is located. When you do like a Gemba walk, you can observe the person, how often the person has to stand up from his desk and go to another person, or maybe go to another place in the office, because motion is a waste. So think from the perspective of the customer. Customer doesn't want to pay for time the person spent on walking between her desk and printer. In that time, the person can do other value-added activities. So look at the process from this perspective. Okay, the next waste is my favorite one. It's about waiting. So we are always waiting for something. We are waiting for summer, we are waiting for holidays, we are waiting for approval, we are constantly waiting. But the beauty is that, you know, the time is now, and we should do something now. So you should look at this and your process and look for the situation when you wait for something. Maybe you wait for some parts of the product to be delivered to the factory. Maybe you wait for approval. Maybe you wait for some documents. Maybe you wait for email. Think about all the situation when you need to wait for something, and think how you can eliminate those activities, because they are not adding value to the customer. Customer doesn't want to pay you for 2 days of waiting. Of course, in the same time you are doing something, but this is the way, you know, the beauty is to design the process the way that there's no waiting. And it's so, I think this is the one of ways that is very, very common, and I think you can see the waiting in every process. So please make sure you decrease the time spent on waiting in your process. Okay, the second, from the second letter and the third letter is O. So it's overproduction and overprocessing. So let me explain you overproduction and overprocessing on the example of PowerPoint presentation. So think that somebody asks you, your customer, maybe your manager, asks you to prepare like a PowerPoint presentation. And you created 20 beautiful slides, really beautiful. You are very proud of your work. You spent like 2 weeks preparing those presentation, but you didn't ask before how many slides is needed. And only one slide was needed. So actually it is about overproduction. You produced more than is needed. Instead of one slide, you produced 20 slides. It doesn't make sense. So think aware in your process you have overproduction. The second O is overprocessing. What does it mean? When you have a presentation, let's say it's like a one slide, you put on the slide so many information there are not needed. So nobody asks you to put so many information on the slide, but actually you did it because you thought that maybe everything is equally important, but it's not. And overprocessing is doing too much. So nobody expects it's for you, but you do it, and it's really like a waste. It's a waste of time, your effort, and it's a waste of time of the person, the customer that is going later to see the presentation. So think about this kind of activities, how to decrease the number of over processing in your process as well. Defects. So defect is about something what is not meeting customer requirements. And we are very specific about customer requirements from the sidebox. So on the output level, you can have a list of all requirements from the customer. And items that are not meeting customer requirements are called defects. And our goal is to decrease number of defects. So think from your process perspective, or what does it mean defect? So first, try to define what defect means to the customer, and look at the data. Maybe you have a data to really show the number of defects in your process, or maybe you can even observe during the Gemba walk how the defect is created. So what is the situation around that the defects is in place. Okay, so we have TMUD, so we have transport, inventory, motion, waiting, overproduction, overprocessing, defect. The last one is unused creativity of employees. And I think we are done with this part of analyze phase. This is like a pure lean, so really how to eliminate waste. On the next video, we'll look for root causes. So why the process behaves this way. You describe in the define phase, you measure in measure phase, and you analyzed and look during the Gemba walk as the first step of analyze phase. Okay, so the next video will be about how to run a workshop related with Ishikawa diagram, and for you it will be like a first opportunity to really start acting as a project manager. So you will be responsible for setting up the workshop and running the workshop. Okay, thank you very much for your time, and see you soon.